Hi and welcome to Dear Andy, where every week here at SI.com we answer your college football and most important meal of the day questions. Let's get right to them. Our first question this week comes from Richie, and he asks, what are the odds that Alabama doesn't have a full-time starting QB until they play Ole Miss at Oxford on October 4th? And is that their biggest concern? We'll take part one first. If you look at the history of Nick Saban, he's not a guy who likes to go into a season with a couple of quarterbacks. Look at his history. Most of the big quarterback moves have been based on injuries. For example, Matt Mock replacing an injured Rohan Davey in the 2001 SEC Championship game when LSU beat Tennessee. Saban teams tend to pick a guy and stick with him. Now, new offensive coordinator Lane Kiffin, not necessarily like that. Last year at USC, he alternated Cody Kessler and Max Wittek for a while. Then he got fired. I think Nick Saban's going to win this one. I can see them maybe playing Jacob Coker and Blake Sims against West Virginia and against Florida Atlantic and against Southern Miss, but they've got Florida on September 20th in Tuscaloosa. I think Nick Saban is going to want to know who his guy is before he plays that defense. Is quarterback their biggest area of concern? That's another question entirely. I'm not sure it is, because they have that offensive line. They have a lot of weapons. That's going to make the job of the quarterback easier. I think the biggest area of concern at Alabama is still cornerback. It was an issue they had last year. They could not find two guys who could lock people down the way Alabama has in the past few years. If they can't find a great corner, or two preferably, that's going to get exposed with the style of defense they play. Our next question is near and dear to my heart. It comes from Bailey. If you could make one fat guy touchdown happen this year, who would you choose? As a fat guy, I love the fat guy touchdown. I do. But it's getting harder and harder to find them because you're having defensive ends picking up fumbles and scoring touchdowns. And I don't know if you've noticed, but defensive ends aren't fat anymore. So really, it's got to be a defensive tackle or an offensive lineman. And because of degree of difficulty and rarity, I'm going to go with offensive lineman. And I can't give you just one, I'm going to give you two. Wisconsin guard Kyle Costigan is a tough dude. Last year he dislocated his kneecap. Do you know how much time he missed? 2 plays. 2. Love to see him score, and I know he would love to get in the end zone and dedicate that touchdown to his mom, who is battling cancer right now. The other offensive lineman I would love to see scoop and score, Auburn offensive tackle Sean Coleman. Right after Coleman signed with Auburn in 2010, he was diagnosed with lymphoblastic leukemia. Not a lot of people thought he'd ever play football again. He got the cancer in remission, and he clawed his way up the depth chart at Auburn. If anybody deserves to get in the end zone, that's the guy. Our next question comes from Athens, Greece. And he asks, if Siler Miles is merely adequate, could Washington seriously challenge Oregon and Stanford in the Pac-12 North? This is a great question too. I'm fascinated by the idea of Chris Petersen with Power Conference talent. Siler Miles looks like a pretty good quarterback. He could be very, very good, not just merely adequate. And you look at Washington's schedule. They have to go to Autzen Stadium. They'd have to play at Oregon. That's tough. That's about as tough as it gets in the Pac-12. But they get Stanford, UCLA, and Arizona State, the other toughest teams on their schedule, at home. If Siler Miles is better than merely adequate, and Chris Petersen manages to instill the same attitude in the Washington players that he did in the Boise State players, it gives them an opportunity to be in the hunt in the Pac-12 North. And that could make things pretty interesting, because if you can win that division, you may be competing for a playoff berth. Our final question comes from Gene, and it's another great one. What's your preferred game day watching breakfast to get the day started off strong? Well, remember, Gene, I'm usually on the road on Saturdays, so I'm not pouring myself a bowl of cereal at home. Because I cover a lot of night games, I tend to take it easy at breakfast. I tend to go something simple like oatmeal or bacon and eggs, but it depends on where I am. In every SEC town except College Station, and boy are they mad about that, there's a Waffle House. If you had a rough Friday night, Waffle House makes a great Saturday morning. Now me, I get the pork chops and I get hash browns, which, despite the name of the place, are the attraction. How a man orders his hash browns at Waffle House says a lot about him. This is how I order them. Scattered. That just means they mess them around on the plate. Covered. Cheese. Chunked. Ham. Topped. Chili. It hurts a little later, but it gets you through the day. Now if I'm in Austin, Texas, I'm going to one in a million. And I'm having some chorizo con huevo. That's a great way to start the day. Tortillas soaking up the grease. But the best breakfast in college football is in Iowa City, Iowa. If you are there for an Iowa game, you are going to the Hamburg Inn number 2. They were closed for a little while. They had a fire in May, reopened this week. The Hawkeye Hog. Sausage, hash browns, and cheese smothered in gravy. And yeah, if you ask and pay a little extra, they'll even add bacon. I know you're hungry for college football season now. For SI.com, I'm Andy Staples.